Hi, Soman.
You don't know how much I suffer for our
That's
things.
right, because you can't have your AC on.
And it's like 98 degrees here. I'm actually fanning myself with my Chase auto loan bill.
Make sure your address is not
You can come here and turn on the AC for me.
If anything, please make Soman have to move because he needs somewhere that's more podcast friendly.
When this airs, I'll still be here in the heat box, but you're actually going to be in Europe on tour. What do you think you'll be doing at this exact precise moment?
Well, it depends on what day it is because I'm going to be in 3 different countries.
Oh my God. Have you revealed where you're going to be yet?
Well, I don't know. Well, since I'll be there when this airs, I'll be able to say. At present, we've only revealed that I'm going to a romantasy ball in the Netherlands. But I will also have been in Denmark and Poland. Denmark, it's another fantasy festival that I'm doing. And Poland is a proper tour with 3 cities.
Oh my God. Romantasy ball implies like sexy men.
So I don't know about the sexy men, but the schedule I've got so far, it's from like 7 p.m. to midnight.
And is there like dancing?
I think so. I went to my first romantasy convention last year in Los Angeles, and I had a great time. You would love it. And there was a ball at the end. And I remember meeting up with a lot of the authors and being like, we're going to the ball, right? And some of them said, oh, no, we don't go to those things. Those are just for the readers. The authors don't go to that. And I was like, what do you mean we're not going to the ball? We're going to the ball. Everyone go check your suitcases, get your dress. And then we went to the ball, and I will never forget this. There was a woman there who had the exact dress from the end of Ever After with the wings. And she looked amazing. And it was so much fun.
We need to make a deal right now that we're both going to write romantasies in the same year so we can go on this circuit together. Just so we can go to these
That would be funny.
Things.
Because there's all these people who are like, oh, a lot of people are jumping on the romantasy train because it's popular and that's the only reason they want to write it. And you're like, I want to write it so I can go to the events. They sound awesome. I feel like you should be able to. School for Good and Evil is definitely got a middle grade romantasy to it. It's on
the verge. Well, you'll see us one day soon at a romantasy ball.
I know. And your next book that we're talking about, all about today, is not a romantasy.
More about that in a second.
Okay. Hi, I'm Victoria Aveyard, author of The Red Queen and the Realmbreaker series.
And I'm Soman Shinani, author of the School for Good and Evil series. And welcome to Plot Twist, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of the biggest swings in our careers. Victoria's Tempest, her very first novel for adults, an epic pirate fantasy.
And Soman's Young World, a red-hot young adult political thriller. But today's episode is a little different because we have a special announcement to make.
Which is that pre-orders for Young World have officially started. And if you pre-order now before January 1st, you're going to get an extra special pre-order gift, which is you actually get an extra book, which is The Making of Young World, the collection of all my Diary of a Novel Substack essays that I did over the 2 years of writing this book. So you get over 50 plus diaries, all the like 400 plus pages, might be a lot more, of the behind the scenes of all my process and emotions and drama and everything that went into making Young World, which is really my Noah's Ark, which, I've been working on for so long trying to bring to life, and it's finally done. So all you have to do is go to the official website, which we unveiled this week, revoltingyouth.org. That's revoltingyouth.org, and upload your pre-order receipt there, and you're going to get your Making of Young World book when you get your real Young World novel.
Soman, as someone who grew up really, really obsessed with like the DVD special features and the behind the scenes of my favorite movies, to think that you can get that now for a book, I'm delighted, but I'm also like, you just raised the bar for me. How dare you?
Well, I feel like this is our sort of DVD special feature.
A little. It's our commentary.
We're doing it in, yes, this is the commentary track. But I think also as we get closer to unveiling the books, we're going to get into more of like, especially once they're out, we'll get into some real deep dives of how certain things.
I love this idea of doing specific episodes around specific milestones, because a lot of readers don't realize there's milestones beyond just the day the book comes out. There's a lot of big factors for us. But
100%.
To celebrate this week's particular milestone for you, we are going to talk about Young World a little bit deeper, guided by this week's hot topic. Is Young World the future of YA? Or is it the end of it?
I had you announce the topic so I wouldn't sound like a narcissistic asshole.
I know. I was like, ooh, I get to do the topic this week.
But it's a real question. I think, this book was such a big risk, and we're going to talk about all the ups and downs that went into actually, it happening. And it derailed my fairy tale career, literally. So why don't we get into it? And you ask me some questions, I'll ask you some questions, and we'll go for it.
Oh, I love picking your brain. This is so fun for me. Can you give us the elevator pitch for Young World?
Yes, it's a very near future that could happen tomorrow, where a 17-year-old gets absolutely fed up with all the political bullshit and records a TikTok that tells all the youth of America to interfere in the upcoming presidential election and to write him in for president instead as a protest vote, the party of revolting youth. And it ends up completely screwing with the election, and neither party gets to 270, and it leads to all this insanity where the Supreme Court, in order to make the Democrats and Republicans work together, temporarily make the teenager president to basically stall the system.
Ooh. And I'm excited. I am thinking of that episode of Veep.
And the funny thing is, they intend for him to, obviously be stripped of it within 24 hours. But in that 24 hours, other governments start falling. And so you have this global coup of revolting youth. And that's all within the first
geopolitics.
25 pages of the book. And so then the revolting youth meet at the first G8 summit, and a murder happens. And from there, it's all about the messiness of teenage leaders in charge of the world, trying to not just save the world, but also save themselves.
It'll be a nice break from the messiness of old white men running the world.
Oh my God, these are much more charismatic and fun to be around.
Well, I guess we got to start at the beginning. So how did Young World begin? Like, what was the genesis of this idea and this story?
Well, I think it's funny because you were with me when everything happened at the end of the School for Good and Evil arc, which is, I had released the last book in the series, the prequels had come out, the movie had just come out. We had basically hit kind of critical mass in terms of what I could do with that series. And now it was kind of global IP. Netflix owned it. I just felt like I was at the zenith, is that the highest point, of what School for Good and Evil could be and what fairy tales could be in the middle grade space. At the same time, I had been living in New York for 22 years. I was desperate to leave. I had just gotten into a new relationship with someone in St. Louis. So I had committed to leave New York, and I had committed to end School for Good and Evil. And I think you could sense that when you came to the movie premiere in LA, that like something was about to change. Something big was going to change in my life. I was going to move to St. Louis. I was going to do something new. But I also knew that I had a big opportunity in the fairy tale space to kind of become like the Rick Riordan of fairy tales.
That.
Well, like in the sense of sticking with this part of the middle grade branding space that I owned, right? And so I was like, well, I'll just take big pots of money and write Neverland. And I had a really good idea for kind of a revisionist take on Neverland. And I started it. We already had a movie studio interested before I even wrote a word. I was sort of going down the path of what made the most sense. And then I just couldn't get into it somehow. Like something was off. I was in a new city, new relationship, new everything. And here I was writing fairy tales still. And it's funny because for about 4 or 5 years, I had been entertaining this idea of what if a teenager was president and what would that look like? And I never could make the story work. And it just was something in the back of my head. And I was like, I'd love to write something like that one day. And I had lunch with an executive named Kate Myers in London at the time. And I was telling her this, like, I'd love to do a story about a teenager being president. We were working on, it couldn't happen in real life. What would be the point? And then you're just watching Doogie Howser, basically. And then I had the idea at the table, and she was sort of brainstorming with me. What happened if a teenager did become president and it set off kind of coups in other countries at the same time? And you had not just a teenage American president, but teenage other leaders. And you had this kind of youth party grow globally. And something about that, have you ever had an idea that when you got it at the time, you were like, shit, I wish I could write this right now?
Yes, of course.
And you want to derail and so that had happened right when I was working on Neverland, and I couldn't shake it. And at the time, Biden was going to run against Trump. That's where it felt like it was
Oh,
headed. And something about me just felt the undercurrent of like, this is coming. Like there's an old versus young war coming.
mm.
So I didn't tell anyone. I started noodling with it for about 6 months. And then in April of 2023, after I was in St. Louis a few months, I sent the first 150 pages to my editor.
Mm-hmm.
Not my editor, agent, Pete.
Mm-hmm.
And he read it and he called me the next day and he goes, this is not good. It was the first time I ever had a conversation like that with Pete, where he just was like, I just want to tell you this is really bad. And I was like, I know it's bad. He's like, but the idea is amazing. And I said, I know it. And I know the idea is amazing and I just don't know how to do it yet. And he goes, the problem is it's the ghost of School for Good and Evil. You're still in School for Good and Evil space. You're still in that fairy tale and you're trying to write this that way. It's very lush and third person omniscient and it reads like a romantasy. And that's not, what the book is. So him just being point blank, being like, this is really bad, made me throw it out, but also not give up. And I started new and I said, let's just go balls to the wall, new format, first person, diary, mixed media, and we're just going to completely come up with an absolutely new genre, new form for telling this story, because it's the only way I'm going to be able to like rid myself of the good and evil ghosts and just go to a new place.
Oh, just that. Just a completely brand new format, genre, story, perspective.
You'd be surprised when your agent tells you something is really bad, how it
I would
frees you
say
up.
it almost makes you trust them more too, because you realize like they're not, we always talk about you don't want a yes man creatively. And I think at certain levels of success, you start to run into that. And some people are like, okay, great. Like let the horses run. I have the best instincts, forward we go. And sometimes we're like, no, we still need those voices in the room to bounce off of. And so that's really great that you have an agent who is like, this is bad. How do we fix it? Not this is bad. Go back to Neverland. But my immediate thought is Neverland is definitely in your future. I think because you don't need it right now, you needed this. It might tap on your shoulder again.
I think so. What's funny is it has come, back to me here and there. So I think there was something at that period where it felt like, I needed to, Taylor Swift says this sometimes. In order to make a new album, she has to turn against the album before. She has to hate the album before and turn against it and be like, that sucked, in order to then move forward with the new one. And I kind of understand that.
That's really good advice, but also I'm like, I loved Realm Breakers so much, and now I'm in a new book series. Maybe, and because I love that thing, maybe I'm not doing well.
No, I think the difference is, I think because you're still in the fantasy space, I think she was talking about when you're going in a...
Yeah. Well, you didn't change gears just in terms of the format and the content, but you were also changing gears between publishers. And similar to me, you've been at HarperCollins your entire career. How did moving to a new publisher go for you? Because it can be a very, very concerning and scary process.
I'll tell you the whole story because we both know Harper so well. So I can be just totally open with you and tell you, because
they're listening right now like, oh God.
Let them. HarperCollins, I was there 10 years. And, the reason I felt so safe and comfortable there were these three women. Toni Marquette, who was my editor there for 10 plus years and had been there for more than 50 years. She was Maurice Sendek's editor. She worked with Shel Silverstein. She managed the Narnia estate. She's a legend. Suzanne Murphy, who was the president of HarperCollins, and then the head of sales, Suzanne. Andrea Pappenheimer, who also was incredible. And those three women were like this coven of just absolute facilitating by creativity and just being in there with me. I had signed a deal to do a School for Good and Evil spinoff, and it turned into Beast and Beauty, and they were like, let's go with it. That had nothing to do with School for Good and Evil. So they were very much like, follow your flow, do what you're going to do. We are here, and that they gave me the roots that I could then, fly. All three left at pretty much the exact same time that I moved to St. Louis. So School for Good and Evil ended, and then all three departed. And so, I still had to take Young World to them, but it felt like I don't know my anchor here. It's a new regime. I don't know these people. And to the point of I wasn't comfortable just submitting it. I wanted to do a meeting because I actually wanted to meet everyone. So I did a big Hollywood style pitch meeting with insane visuals and like a whole speech and like a
Did you have
trailer and a song.
choreographed dance?
Essentially, I rehearsed. Spent so much time on
Well,
it.
yeah, I know you.
I mean, I just went, because that was going to be the pitch. And, I went there and the meeting could not have gone better. I mean, I had the visceral excitement in the room they understood it, that we were trying to build this movement of revolting youth, that this was about getting young people to engage in the future. And it went so well that we actually upped our asking price by like 3 times. But as soon as the meeting was over the next 2 weeks, the kind of, questions that come with a new administration and a new regime. We have an author that has made us tens of millions of dollars in the fairy tale space. He would like to write a sexy political thriller. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're new. It's not what you don't want the South Park guys to come in and say, we would like to write an erotic romance.
Yes, but if the South Park guys have made you XYZ, you think, what's the value of holding them in the stable long term?
I think it was just such a transitory time there that,
And it was COVID too, I believe. It was
after that. It was but still.
But it was still, things were rebuilding and things were in flux. And I just think people, maybe rightfully so, could not really think long term.
And also, the book is a big risk. It's not a fairy tale. It's not middle grade. It's political. It's incendiary. It's super controversial at certain points, which we'll talk about. It's 2 colors. You have to print the entire thing in color. It's mixed media. There's artists involved. Everyone's like, we'd love for you to do your young adult debut, but can it just be a lot of ripped bodices and, the things that people might expect?
They thought, between Victoria and her gargantuan draft and Soman and his colors, we can only take on one production nightmare.
We can only go bankrupt over one book.
Shit, don't say that. Soman.
No one's going
bankrupt. Touch wood.
You will have towers made of money that come.
Touch wood again.
So I did what made the most sense, which is I went to the person who took a risk on me with School for Good and Evil, which was VBA at Random House. And she had been at Harper for, many years. And she was the one who bought the first School for Good and Evil when no one else would, because School for Good and Evil was a middle grade romantasy and that genre didn't exist. And I said, listen, I'm inventing another genre that doesn't exist. And I need you to take a chance on me. And she read it and she goes, this is absolutely psycho, but let's do it. Like, she goes, this is crazy what you're trying to do, but we'll try, and she took it on and we went for it. So, and that was it. That was 3 years ago.
Wow. So that was 3 years ago. We are now 3 years ahead. The political sphere has become even more concerning. I don't even know how to describe it. And we're especially seeing that concern fall back on books in a big way. Are you concerned about political implications and if this book could get you banned in a number of different ways?
It's funny. We were talking with the marketing team, and we were like, the best thing that could happen is someone in the U.S. government holds up like a copy of the arc or the book and is like, this cannot be allowed.
Oh my God.
We would put it everywhere. But I think what's interesting is, when I started writing, I felt Trump was going to run against Biden. Biden was going to win, and we were going to spend 4 years talking about age. That was my bet. And then, he dropped out. Kamala ran. Trump wins, and we're still kind of talking about age because it's not just Trump, but you've got, Schumer, and you've got the average age in the Senate is 70s. And you feel like all these old people are trading on young people's futures. So it started to get more and more relevant. And you could actually feel young people who were ping-ponging between blue and red for the last, 20 years looking for a home. And they had broken for Trump at the end of the, election because he was funny on TikTok and they didn't know what to do and all the usual things that happen. And you could feel like the rage was building. And I felt like what's interesting is now that the book is done, there's so many echoes in the book that are starting to come true. Like, Zoran Mamdani just won the Democratic nomination for the mayoral election in New York City.
Right.
And, I was there on the day of the election, and it felt like the book Young World had come to life. About
How old is he?
He is 33.
Oh, wow.
And so,
Nice.
but you just saw teenagers in the streets everywhere, even not of voting age, pushing you to go vote for him. And it just felt like something from the book, because in the first 20 pages of Young World, you have a teenager who just basically calls out the system that's rigged against youth, even though youth are going to inherit the future that politicians are deciding. And a kid makes a TikTok that goes, super viral and leads to an election sort of being upended and everything that happens. And so in this case, I just felt like I was seeing the rise of youth in this one election. And all of a sudden, after he won, 4,000 young people signed up to run for office. And the possibility of what was happening in the book, which is why it's called Young World, the idea of young people deciding we're no longer investing in the political parties of old. We're going to be our own party and take over the world. I felt like I just wanted to go for it. And so that in itself is a threatening message, I think, to some extent. It's also a funny quirk that I used to work for Zoran's mom. That was my first job. I was her assistant. And
oh my God. Do you think she would remember you?
Oh, yeah. I just saw her in the subway a few months ago, and she texted me to come canvas for him. I'm like, I'm in St. Louis now. But I used to babysit Zoran when he was 12 or 13. It was kind of crazy.
Okay. So every week we get your delusional, I want to be Evita, I want to do this, these massive moments you want to insert yourself into. And then you just drop, oh yeah, I used to babysit him.
It was just my first job. When I saw The Devil Wears Prada, I was like, this is kind of what I did. You just kind of run around. In those years, it was different. It was like personal assistants.
Oh, you could abuse the shit out of a personal assistant. There was no recourse.
We didn't have ChatGPT and the internet and social media to do all our work.
Yes, you had to be really self-sufficient.
To be self-sufficient on the ground. And so, that was one of the quirks. And so, that's one element of the book's kind of ballsiness, which is this idea that I'm going to be, front and center in the book's front and center, being like, don't vote for old people who don't have your interest. Look for young people who are running. And if they are aligned with you, take a chance on them, The second thing is the book is primarily, that's just the first 20 or 25 pages of the book, the elections happening and the coup spreading globally. The rest of the book is about what happens when teenagers are in charge. And so it's a lot of sex, drugs, rock and roll, and the messiness of youth with the right intentions and energy and, the ability to make friendships and bonds and alliances, but also all the chaos that can happen with romances gone bad and secrets, because to me, teenagers hold even more secrets than, your usual politician, which is scary. So that implosion of good intentions versus poor execution, I think is at the center of the tension, and ultimately, what does it mean to be governed by the young, So.
Also interesting that this is still couched a little bit, as you are a fantasy writer, as a fantasy that there would be younger people in government. That is such a fantasy
right now. But I think that's gonna change because of how many people, first of all, how many young people are signing up to run for office, and also the idea that they're learning how to use social media.
Yeah, learning how to use social media is big. The thing I think we all need to get around is this idea that people can be convinced or manipulated into voting against their own interests if they're given a carrot or pointed at some third thing. And say, oh, yeah, no, we're not going to fix this thing because we have to fix this thing, this small issue. And so you have so many politicians finding these sort of niche issues that they turn into large cultural conversations and wedges that completely distract from the fact that, they're destroying your healthcare, they're destroying your health insurance, they're using your tax dollars to do things that do not benefit you whatsoever. But you get to stick it to these people that you don't like, who don't affect you in any possible way.
Well, that's why I keep thinking, and this is what Young World is really about, if the revolting youth, because that's the name of their party, adopted kind of MAGA mindset, which is we all subscribe to a particular framework of philosophy, which is, fix the climate, fix debt, fix all the things that, mental health, gun control, all the things that young people care about in order to protect their futures. And this is what's paramount, right? It almost doesn't matter who is running because they're subscribing to the orthodoxy of this youth mindset of we're going to protect our futures. And if they become quite militant about it and they're just as aggressive about, rejecting other platforms and sticking to the fact that being young is its own party, this is what happens in the book. And it's this question of good, bad, where does it lead?
Yeah.
Where does it take us? And also it's called Young World for a reason and not Young America, because within 50 pages, our new American president goes to his first G8 summit to meet all his other fellow young leaders. So it really is about sort of the cultural clash.
I have so many questions about like the nitty gritty in the world building. And I'm like, who's flying the plane to get him to the G8? Is it an adult? Is it a child? What's going on there?
It's an adult.
It's an adult.
All of these. So here's the other crazy part. And I'll be so curious when you write your first contemporary, which is
Never.
I've done fantasy for so long. And so to write a contemporary that not only is set in the real world, but involves the whole world. I mean, the sheer amount of research,
that's why I'm not doing it.
It's insane. Like every paragraph had to be, had 40 details that had to be checked. And luckily I had, my assistant June, and that was his full-time job for almost 2.5 years. Was just every day I would send him 1,000 questions, down to the layout of Air Force One and who's flying the plane and what's the hierarchy and what are the first everything, especially at a G8. And also I had to come up with, not just what is an American leader like, what would a French leader be like who's running France? What would the Italian leader be like? And sort of build all that.
Yeah, and not lean into stereotypes, kind of try and find that, the truth in the middle.
100%. And then the only other thing to note is at its heart, it's a political thriller because as soon as he gets to the G8 in the first 50 pages, there's a murder. And, a murder that
we love a murder as an engine
affects the future of the world. So that becomes sort of the driving engine of the book.
Well, you're talking about however many details there are in the story, and the last few weeks or the last few episodes, we've been talking about the details in the production, and one of them being the behemoth, the Leviathan that had to be conquered, the cover, which was just revealed a few days ago. It was a very tormented process. I am so excited that everyone's finally gotten to see it. I got to see it early.
You got to see it on camera.
Seeing it. I did. What if I had hated it?
What would we have done?
I don't know.
We would have been like, I'm
a really good actress.
I don't know if you would have faked it.
No.
That would have been, I would have felt, you would have seen my face.
Would you have known?
I would have known.
You wouldn't have known.
Faked it.
So anyway, let's talk about the cover.
Well, I feel like you had a tortured cover process with Worldbreaker, and this was mine, where I felt like everything up to all the other books had been, I've been lucky because they'd been more illustrator focused, and it was about finding an amazing illustrator and letting them run free. And usually they just nailed it. And also because with all the other books, Beast and Beauty and all the School for Good and Evil books, I had a concept in mind. So I could give them, with Beast and Beauty, I said, I want a wolf coming after a girl, and the girl's got to be like 1/40th the size of the wolf.
Yes.
She's got to be up against it all. And so then an artist can go with that. But this one, I had no ideas. All I had was a color. I knew I wanted no jacket for the book. I knew I wanted, because we already were doing a 2-color mixed media book. I was like, let's get rid of the jacket and make it totally, stand out in its weirdness. I wanted
Was it floppy?
No, it's a hardback with no jacket.
Interesting.
I know. So it's everything about it is a little crazy.
What are you doing?
And so then I wanted it to be hot pink because I wanted this like bright hot pink book that you would just see teenagers carrying around, kind of like a punk guide to overthrowing government. That's what I wanted it to feel like. Like we're carrying around this, and I said I wanted it to be this pink brick with pink stained edges and no cover. So it's just hot pink, which was met with silence.
You are not Madonna. You're not Taylor Swift. You're not Madonna.
I
I
was
want
like, everyone will know what it is anyway. They're like, why would anyone know
No.
what it is? They're going to think it's like,
We don't have monoculture anymore,
I
Soman.
know.
You are attempting to bring back the monoculture centered around you.
I was like, everyone's going to be in their cars carrying that. And they're like, what are you?
They're cars. What?
Anyway, they had the same reaction you did. So the other thing that did not help was that Barbie came out.
Mm,
And so Hot Pink became
Barbie.
Barbie. And I just felt like, okay, let's let go of Hot Pink. And then in the book, he's obsessed with this soda called Nuke soda that he's always drinking. And I kept thinking, like, for the color, what if we had this nuclear, like, orange color that almost is like the color of a traffic cone,
Mm.
like that is so bright that it just, jumps out at you. And so we started calling the color instead of hot pink, we now had nuke. So we kind of went from Barbie to Oppenheimer. And
Nice.
we worked really hard on finding that color. But we still didn't have a cover because I still was it could just be, the
They
color.
must have loved that Soman. I'm trying to
I wouldn't
imagine the
let go of it.
meeting where they said, well, Soman doesn't want a real cover.
Then I said the other thing I wanted was fine, then just put the title on it, Young World, but no author. I want it to feel like it
Again,
just dropped from the sky. They just were not.
Soman. Oh my
I
God.
I
I hope you
tried
sent
many.
them so many fruit baskets.
I sent them lots of hand-drawn comps that were rejected. So we went, through many covers. Finally, we had one that everyone agreed on, and I liked it because it was cool. But thankfully, at the last second, sales rejected it. And they came to me being like, "Oh my God, are you going to fight for it? Like, if you fight, we can push it through." And I was like, "I'm not fighting for it because they're right." There was
Oh,
something in
look
me.
at
Like
you.
sometimes, oftentimes they're right. And so when they are, you just have to, even though it spent 3 months working on this cover, we just said, let's start over. So we started
Mm,
completely over, went back to the drawing board. 30 more ideas came in from studios and things. And finally, just almost like when I had given up and was just,
yeah.
we were doing the podcast at that
Yeah,
point. I
we
had no
were.
other ideas. Um, I think it was number 16 in a group of 20 uh, that just had it. It just had, oh, people have seen the cover right now. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're watching this, you've seen the cover. And they had an upside down capital. And there was something about a small upside down capital between the world's young world and graffiti that completely caught me.
It looks like you expect it to be nonfiction. I remember when I saw it, I thought, oh, this looks like it's going to be a really, really educated, long sort of like manifesto
Mm-hmm.
on the future of government in our current society. And then it's like, no, it's not. It's a YA novel. Like you've set the tone very, very well. The expectations are going to be there going in from the cover alone.
We wanted it to feel like a guide, like this
Mm-hmm.
underground guide to, you know, turning everything upside down. And at the same time, the idea was, should we have the White House? Should we have the Capitol? I wanted it to be, if you don't know the Capitol, and a lot of teenagers don't, it'll just look like a palace, in which
Mm-hmm.
case it could be anywhere in the world.
I mean,
So
I love upside down things on covers. Red Queen, upside down crown.
yes. And
It
in fact, we
works.
almost tried the title upside down.
Uh, uh,
But that went over as well as the no name, no title, no anything on the book.
it's also interesting because I don't know if a lot of people listening or people who haven't gone through the publishing process before realize how many moments you can be stopped and have, all systems go. We love the cover, blah, 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 blah. Nope, so and so says no. Sales says no. You can get
Hmm.
it by sales, get it to Barnes and Noble. And
Hmm.
Barnes and Noble can say, no, no. And they can either say, like, we don't like it, change it, tweak it, do this, change the color, or they can be like, reject. And then you have to work with that. And you can either be like, okay, you reject it, but we like it still, and we'll move forward and figure something out. But a lot of covers get stopped in that process and turned around because of exterior forces who are not part of the team.
You either have to be, and this is such a key point for every author, you have to take your own temperature and know whether you believe in that cover or not.
Mm,
So that first cover that we worked 3 months on, I fought for, but I knew deep inside, I was like, I think they're right. And so when they finally put the gauntlet down, I folded. I said, you're right. Like, and I think they were surprised, but they were right the second time. A lot of the feedback we got on the current cover is it's so different. Like, and the fear of like, is that good? Is that bad? And I'm like, it's right. Like, I was just dead sure of it. Even when we were trying to refine it, like I know we talked about this in certain podcasts, like they were still trying to refine. And I was like, stop. It's perfect. Leave it.
Yeah.
This is what we want.
And there's something exciting, I think, as dangerous as it is, to
Mm.
be in that space where you're like, this is either a hit
Yes.
or a flop. And a lot of the stuff, at least because we work in a business, we want to keep the engine running. A lot of things our publishers look at, they think, okay, we know how much money this will make. We know what genre this is.
Yes.
We know what the target is. We know it's going to do X, Y, Z. And then to have something that has the potential to do so much more or so much less. It's scary, but it's exciting versus that thing where you're like, this is guaranteed going to be the middle of the road.
I always felt like obviously the floor for this was going to be lower than School for Good and Evil because that had such a built-in audience. But I felt the ceiling could be much higher because it's a book that I think everybody should read, young or adult.
I think also you're going to be looking at a different unfolding.
Yes.
Like, I think if anything, it's going to have so much more legs than like a series or a sequel because those are so front loaded. Where something like this, and especially for your intention, like you want it to build, you want word of mouth to spread, you want it to get bigger and bigger every week versus that splash and then disappear.
Interesting that I can tell you this now. One of the hallmarks of this book are the twists because you and I love plot twists. That's what it's about. And
we do.
Young World has more than any I've ever done before.
Ooh.
And we don't know how to put out the arc without all the twists being spoiled. So we actually, it looks like, I don't know what's going to happen by the time people listen to this. We're going to actually cut out the last 100 pages.
I think that's really smart. And I also think there are more arcs than not that should do that. There are plenty of books that come out, and I think, why are they doing a full arc of this? Why aren't they cutting the third act or whatever? I think the arc would stand on its own and be able to do what it needs to do. So I'm glad you're doing it.
Yeah.
Because I've definitely had those like where I've advocated for, I don't want an arc, I want a sampler or.
Yeah. And in this case, it just, the shock of it, and some of them are pretty controversial and things like that. I just feel like, let people enjoy it rather than having it be spoiled.
Can I get an arc?
Yeah. So we're just waiting for them to be printed. Do you want the full one, or am I going to give you the one with the 100 cut out?
No, I want the full.
I'm going to purposely cut out the last 100.
No. It's mean.
But the arc's going to be in 2-color. So that's the cool part.
Yes. So this is a mixed media approach to a book. I have a tiny bit of experience with that with The Last Red Queen, like short story development. We did a bit of that, but yours is much more intense. So how did you sort of incorporate all the design and the visual elements and lug around your proofs all over London?
It's a 125,000 word book, and there's 200 plus visual elements. So it's a lot. It was like making a movie. And the idea being that I wanted it to feel like you're reading a thriller like the Da Vinci Code. The Da Vinci Code was kind of my light in the sky of how you could do something that was, propulsive, that had clues and puzzles in it and things like that. But at the same time, I wanted to up the ante by having in between chapters these kind of interstitial visual chapters that gave you the resources you would need for the next chapter, and also have Easter eggs for solving the larger mysteries and things like that. And I want it to be kind of natural to the form, which is this is the young president's diary. So it's everything he would have clipped into his diary and sort of stuffed in there. And so when you're reading it, it should really feel like you're just in with somebody's most
there'll
intense,
be a ticket from that thing that he is attending 100%. In this chapter.
Every flyer, every schedule, everything that he ever, has, like, we've made visual. And, at the same time, you're also getting news reports and seeing the outside world. So I had this idea, like when I went back and started the book completely over, I said, let's just write the most kind of like aggressive, teenage boy diary ever and just go for it, rather than the omniscient School for Good and Evil version of it. And so I didn't know how to do that through a publisher. So I hired my own artists, and basically that was part of the deal, which was I'm going to pay all the artists and I'm going to control. everything. Like, the only thing I didn't control in the process was the cover, and we ended up with something fantastic. But with the art, I controlled all 200 elements. I had 3 different artists working simultaneously.
Wow.
And it was a lot like, almost like building a house. Like every day, drafts would come in of new art. I would mark up notes on it. It would go back into the pipeline, and June was managing the whole thing. And, they were such an essential part of the process that on the title page of the book, they actually all get credits because, they're part of the whole experience of it, And so that was it. I was writing, but then also, working with visuals, and I was moving them around, and it was a lot like building a house, and things were always changing. And even now in the final stages of doing the arc, I was like, well, what if we move that art before this one? And what if we move this here? Oh, look how that impacts the way you read it. And oh, you'll be surprised here. So,
oh my God. That's so much to think about beyond just the structure of the story itself. And yet again, I come back to, why are you doing this to the rest of us and raising the bar to a place we can't reach, you bastard?
I think because it was a totally new form. Like in Romantasy, it would be very
well, weird. It's still text. It's still, for as much as I'm a lunatic about the maps in my books, that's the single piece, like the visual element that I need, and I think the reader should have. But beyond that, it's like it's got to stand on the text, and then to bring in all these other elements, you're like a film director.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
I always wanted to direct a movie. I went to film school like you did. That was my dream. I always wanted to direct, And I never did because writing novels ultimately gave me control. But there was something in me that wanted to go even higher, to almost like a different level of directing. And there was something about doing this book that I love so much. And my dream in life is that it does well enough that I get to do one every 4 years for every new presidential administration, So
you would go through this whole process again.
I would do,
because now I'm hearing it, and I wonder, if I had to go through this, I'd be running screaming back to prose novels.
Which I am, but I think, but it's funny. It's always like that. Like now that I'm in the middle of a prose novel, I sort of miss just sort of the renegade nature of, sort of inventing this crazy thing. So I think, to me, it's one of these books that I feel like even if someone doesn't want to read, when they have it on their desk and they flip through it, they're going to be like, this is hella cool. Like, it's just going to be a cool flip through.
Yes.
Just to see 200 pages of art from 3 different artists that are all part of this Easter egg murder mystery that, you're going to be part of solving, hopefully, along the way.
Well, so, to answer our hot button question, are you destroying YA with this book?
That's the question. I mean, to me, it's such a big risk. And I can't wait when we do your episode 2, because yours is a risk for different reasons, which is, this is such a huge risk because I took my career in a different direction, and I left behind, guaranteed sort of success and money and approval to do another fairy tale, to do a book that I honestly thought was super important, and important in the sense of I want young people to save us. It's the only thing we've got.
Yeah.
Because
stop making tradwife content and weird red pill shit. Come back.
Come back. Like, this world is yours. You can do it. You guys band together and you actually use your power and your movement and give yourself a title. Look, I wrote the book. I tell you exactly how to do it. Just do it. And if you follow the lead, everything's going to be all right. I even give you the website to do it. So I think, to sort of put a button on everything, I think at the very least, it's the future for me in terms of how big I think about things I write now. I'm thinking of them in a how do I approach this in a different way than I would have perhaps ordinarily. So it's the future of Soman and also the end of Soman at the same time. And so we'll see what everyone thinks. I look forward to all the reaction, and I'm sure Marie Lu was one of the early readers, and she called me when she was done, and she goes, the first thing I have to say about this is you're going to get a lot of reaction. And I was like, I wish I could just put that on the cover.
Well, that's what you shoot for. You want the reaction. You're one of those people who says, oh, no press is bad, or no, bad press is good press, or whatever it is that you say.
In another life, I was Madonna naked hitchhiking on the, Ocean Drive Expressway.
Well, I'm glad we get to talk about this particular book process.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for
Of course.
guiding the audience through this. You know, it felt like I was on the hot seat. I literally am. Like, I'm so sweaty from this 98-degree apartment. But I can't wait to talk about Tempest when the pre-orders open for you, because pirates are my favorite genre. So I'm just going to have so many questions for you. Do you have any idea when we're going to be doing a full Tempest episode?
So the way that pre-orders work is that they can only open within 9 months. 9 months is the farthest out you can open pre-orders for a book. It's like 300 days, something along those lines. So we know, because your pre-orders open today, that book will be out in 9 months, 300-ish days. Yeah. I don't think I can say when pre-orders will open yet, because I don't know if I can say when our release date is. And I know people will do the math. But as of right now, when we record this episode, and I feel very superstitious saying this, we're recording it now. It will release when I am on the road and when Tempest will officially be in copy edits. So I'm speaking to my future self saying, I hope I'm right. I hope I stick to that schedule. I hope everything happens the way it's supposed to, because that'll feel so fucking good.
So we can promise the audience this, which is anytime we have big news on Tempest, we will have our own little Tempest bonus episodes for any news that we've got on it. So stay tuned for one that might be coming sooner than you think.
Yes.
And just a reminder, Young World pre-orders are open now. And with your pre-order, you'll get a free copy of a second book, The Making of Young World, my collected Substack diaries in an exclusive edition, as long as you upload your receipt to revoltingyouth.org. Everything is at that website, all the instructions, revoltingyouth.org. So make sure you check it out. And just a word of gratitude for all of you that pre-order this book. As you can tell, has been my life for more than 3 years. I think you'll see and feel the passion and insanity when you get it. It's the book I'm proudest of in my whole career. So thank you for taking a chance on me if you pre-order. And with that, we will see you next week for more industry nonsense and regularly scheduled programming.
Thanks, guys. And congratulations, Soman.
Plot Twist is hosted by Victoria Aveyard and Soman Chainani. It's produced and edited by Liam Billiam. Our logos, art, and graphics are by Michael Blank. The music is by Thieves and Louis Adrian. Production support from June Secchia.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe to Plot Twist wherever you listen to podcasts and drop us a review to let us know how we're doing. See you next Thursday.